The Let's Play Hockey Expo at McCann from Rink Live. I'll be joined by Bryn Chyzyk, who is the current Waterloo Blackhawks general manager in the USHL, also a former University of North Dakota hockey player. Thanks for taking some time here.
Yeah, no, great setup you guys got here, and glad I could stop by.
Here she come now, say money, money. Shoot 'em down, turn around, come on, money.
Alrighty, folks, welcome back to another episode of Live in 5, baby. We are recording on Feel Good Friday over here at 93.1, reporting live from the chin of Scottsdale, Arizona. Sitting across from me, as always, is Gage Ausmus, the captain, folks, reporting from somewhere outside the Twin Cities in Minneapolis. It's probably a balmy Ozzo? What's the temp there today? 20 degrees, 15?
You know what? It's actually a little warmer, and I will correct you. I stayed in Grand Forks. I'm still in Forks.
Okay,
So,
you're in Forks tonight.
I'm in Forks right now. I'm going to head up to my grandparents here shortly after the workday. But it's actually kind of warm here, Jordo. It's like 27. Now, that's like 60 degrees in Forks in December.
100%. I mean, I was there last week. I was literally freezing my tits off walking into that game in Bemidji, Minnesota. It was like -4 Fahrenheit. And then with the wind and that rink in Bemidji, as you know, as we talked about, it's fucking freezing in there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that humbled me for sure. But before we get to our interview today with the GM of the year, I believe in 2022, that was Brent Chizyk, coming on the show, GM of the Waterloo Blackhawks, the USHL. At one point, he was the youngest GM ever, I believe, in that league. So Chizyk is going to join the show, talk a little bit about the state of the USHL, obviously the news of now CHL players being able to play college hockey. So we're going to talk to Chiz how that affects the league and everything moving forward in terms of recruiting and also having a very good product still in the USHL. Ozzo, before we get to that, though, we're going to get to our ad reads. We are always brought to you by Butter Golf and Mini Movers over here. Butter Golf, the official lifestyle and apparel brand of Live in 5. Mini Movers. You need something packed. You need something moved in and around the Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota. Give the fellas at Mini Movers a free call today for a free quote today. And get that dialed in. Talk to the captain. Send him a DM. Obviously, you can go to minimovers.com. Get them at socials at Mini Movers on Instagram as well on X. So go talk to the captain, get a free quote if you need something packed up and handled with a little TLC, that is tender love and care, baby. Ozzo, we are always brought to you by Gladiator Therapeutics. And that is, are you tired of dealing with chronic aches and pains or neurological conditions? Gladiator Therapeutics offers a revolutionary solution using quantum physics to improve your health. Our devices use patented technology to emit far infrared light, stimulating cellular processes without heat. This can reduce inflammation, speed up healing, and enhance mobility. Clinical trials show impressive results, including a 400% increase in survivability in stem cells, accelerated wound healing up to 68% faster, and a significant improvements in Parkinson's disease models. Wearable 24/7 without power. Our devices can be a game changer. Visit www.gladiatortherapeutics.com /contact-DRGM to learn more and start your journey to better health today. Holy fuck, fella. I am flying through that one today. Ozzo, what's up, baby? You said you're in Grand Forks. I didn't know that. What do we got going on up there? Just Mini Movers kind of checking in with the branch up there, or what's shaking, baby?
Yeah, just checking in with the guys up here. I did a little networking event in town yesterday for lunch, joining like a little group per se, just a bunch of business people talking business, trying to help each other, refer each other. So wanted to get back for that and show my face there. So that is why I'm here. And then I ultimately stayed. I'm going to go see my grandparents after this weekend just for a day. I just don't know if I'm going to get up there to see them for Christmas. So I wanted to, say my hellos, show my face. It's always good to see them. So that's why I'm up here.
What does a work, quote unquote, work meeting look like in Grand Forks? Would you go to Bonzer's, have a schooner?
Went to Speedway.
Okay, yes, solid option.
Hell of a spot. Oh yeah.
You get the what's the one, the jalapeno poppin' burger? What is it at that Speedway?
Yeah,
In a fishbowl and a tug, it's like $10 all in.
I actually got the buffalo chicken salad.
Stay light.
I like to stay light on my lunch break.
Yeah.
It was a funny salad, Jordan. I think it had 2,000 calories of shredded cheddar cheese on top that I had to take off. I was like, I didn't know this was coming on here, but
Yeah.
yeah, I took that off. But it was good. It was hilarious, Jordan, because we're in this back room and we're just kind of sharing what our week was like, and I kind of introduced myself and talked about the mini movers and what we can help with and whatnot. And while we're talking, it's like business, but you're in Speedway and they're just playing bangers in the background. So
Oh, yeah.
like you're talking like business at lunch during a weekday, but then there's also people crushing beers like right next to you with like, banger music playing, and it's loud, bass is going. It's like this is hard to focus on business when I got this Motley Crue song playing and guys just draining beers out there. I kind of want to join those guys out there.
How does anyone get anything done in that town? Because everything leads back to the piss. And
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? Whether it's a work meeting, whether it's you're sitting down trying to have a dinner, everyone's thinking about getting drunk. And you mentioned that salad. It's so funny, especially in that neck of the woods, especially North Dakota, Wisconsin. And we do have a lot of viewers and listeners from this area, so they can relate. But every time I go back to North Dakota or Wisconsin, and you get a salad like that at a place like Speedway, which has no business selling a salad. But also,
No.
obviously, you're trying to stay late because you don't want that barrel bomb at noon on a Thursday.
No.
And you get that salad, and it's like, okay, is this nachos or is this actually a salad? Like, what
Yeah.
are we doing here? Like, why is there a full bag of cheddar cheese on my fucking salad? Because most people love that, though. It's so funny.
Oh yeah, they love it, and it was hilarious. I've gotten a little like I'm not proud of this either because I like the hard nosed way of living of the Grand Forks natives, and I like to consider myself one of those people. But it was hilarious. I was like, "Yeah, what kind of like salad dressings do you have?" And she's like, "I don't know, ranch." And I was like, "Okay, that's all you got." Like, it's kind of expecting like to get some options, maybe like a vinaigrette or something, But no, it's just we got a ranch in the back for you. So I was like, "All right, that's fine. Bring some ranch out. It's buffalo chicken, anyways." But yeah, the lettuce on there was hilarious too. Like it wasn't green. It was like that white stuff that kind of you're just eating water almost. But no, I mean the chicken was good, so no complaints. I mean, I was jealous. Usually, everyone knows Speedway's got the best burgers; they're unreal.
Oh yeah,
So
they're great.
I was jealous that I didn't get one of those. A couple other people were eating them, but I just can't do that to myself midday, Jordo, especially during the work week. I do try to keep my diet a little dialed during the week, at least on the weekends, a little fly, but. I just didn't, you get one of those burgers in you, man. You're walking around the rest of the day. I mean, you don't know if you have to shit, your stomach ache, are you sick now? Did you catch it? Did you catch an illness from this burger? Like, you don't know. So,
Yeah, you got to shit and puke at the same time. I mean, that was like my last Friday after Thanksgiving. After bearing about north of 6,500 calories on Thanksgiving, we woke up and our first meal was Great Wall sesame chicken and Fargo, and then didn't eat anything at the game. Had a bite of nachos in Bemidji, and then when we got back to Forks at midnight, we went right to the Pepper, and I had 4 Schneider hardshell tacos. You should have seen me the next morning, dude. I thought I like got hit by a fucking bomb. It was insane. So
you probably felt worse than if you got blacked out drunk.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
And then I got drunk the next night, and then I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? I got back to Scottsdale. And again, like, I'm not saying I'm PD paleo diet over here, but I do like to keep it somewhat tight. So it's so funny though, man. When you get up there, it's just like, fuck, anything goes, and all you think about it. All roads lead back to the bar, and that's what I do love about the good chins of North Dakota. Azo, I wanted to get into this, before we get to our hockey talk, and just for the single guys out there and different things. Like I was thinking, and I was just scheming up things like, there's obviously like ways to do it, not being creepy, talking to gals and different things like that. But I was thinking like, when you're walking around, say a grocery store, you're at the gym, you're on a plane, like a lot of these areas where you maybe could approach a gal, but it's just like awkward. So I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think, like off the top of your mind, like what are some of the hardest places to wheel? Because for me, like the gym would never be a place if you're a single guy out there and trying to, maybe make a move on a lady. It's like she's got her AirPods in, she's locked into her tricep push downs, and then she's going to go to maybe a little bit of a bent over row. You can't be butting in there, and there's no way she wants to be bothered and just like, you're like looking at her like she's prey. Like that's just gets so creepy.
You gotta like tap her so she takes out her AirPods, and then you gotta go like, hey, like think you're kind of hot, and then it's like what? Like I gotta pause my music. What's that? Hey, I think you're kind of hot. Well, what the fuck are you looking at my ass while I'm squatting? You fucking weirdo.
Yes.
I'm gonna get a worker over here and kick your ass out. The gym is the worst place, Jordo. You do not want to do it because usually you go to the same gym and that girl goes to the same gym too. You see her all the time. Now, what happens if you do end up grabbing her and taking her home? Chances are you're not gonna date her. You're gonna have to go to this gym and you're gonna have an awkward, you're walking by her now and it's awkward. It's like you don't. That's why it's terrible. And also at the gym, as you know as well as I do, Jordo, you see a girl in the gym, your judgment's a little clouded. You might add 2 to 3 notches onto her scale or her rating because she's at the gym. I mean, sometimes when you're at the gym, you're like, holy fuck, that girl's hot. And then you see her outside and you're like, what the fuck? She's not that hot. Like I thought she was so hot in the gym. Well, yeah, that's because you're staring at a bunch of sweaty dudes, and then there's probably 1 or 2 girls in there. And yeah, they do look hot in the gym while you're there, but that's just because you're looking at a bunch of sweaty dudes.
Yeah, I mean, their central scouting probably in the real world is around a 6, but in the gym, she becomes an 8. That was always the thing too. Also, like you had like a female trainer, or she was an intern, or maybe she was a student trainer back in the day at school. And, you get down there in the walls where there's no windows and you're in the training room. That training room pump of what you actually think she is, you think she's a 9. Well, yeah, because you're around 35 guys. But then you get her out into the real world. You get her at the bar. You get her at maybe you sneak in a little library session, or maybe you're at archives on the campus of UND, a coffee shop. And it's like, well, now she's actually like a 5. It's just because you get that elevated pump of, again, being around too much testosterone and dudes all day. And I just think, like, if you're at the gym and she's on the treadmill or she's on the Stairmaster working on her glutes or the elliptical, like, you can't, like, look over and, like, expect to flag her down and say something to her. That's so annoying. You see that sometimes. I wouldn't say all the times, but I have seen dudes do that, especially at public gyms. It's like, bro, like, that is so cringeworthy. She does not want to talk to you, man. She's there to get her work in. And I think even the same thing in the same light of like a workout class, there's no way if you go to a Pilates class or you go to some sort of hit style training, which is like circuit training, it's the same thing. Like you maybe get that one window after class where everyone's stretching out, where you could maybe, slide in, hey, how you doing? What do what's your story? Tell me a little bit about you. But at that point, you're all sweaty. You got your gitches dripping. It's like, fuck, man. Like there's no good way to do that. But the thought always goes through my head, at least in the past for sure, of like, fuck, I'd really like to, maybe go say what's up, but it's not the right time.
It's not the right vibe. It's not the right time. Now I'll step into the other ones. The airplane, it can be pulled off. Now, if you're sitting next to the girl on the airplane, it's an easy, you almost have to have a little conversation as long as she doesn't put the headphones in right away. So it's not a bad play. I mean, you're sitting next to her the whole time, so a little sketchy. I mean, the grocery store, I think, is a good spot, actually. Like
for sure.
If you're in the produce section, maybe looking at the meat, you don't want to have Cheez-Its and like Pop-Tarts in your bag, but just put some meat in there, put some healthy stuff, and just hang around the produce section. It's not a bad, like, you see her grabbing some like vegetables or something. Hey, you should grab these. These are really good. I actually have them all the time. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
They're not as like weirded out by that. The gym is by far the worst, though, I think.
Yeah, you give her the old Sonny Koufax and Big Daddy. Stay out of the frozen food section. Your boobs might harden. Hooters, 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 Hooters. See how that goes. But the plane Ozzo, I think could work because now say you're sitting next to her and maybe it's a plane ride that's over 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Maybe you're taking a Sammy Adams coast to coast, LA to New York. Maybe it's Phoenix to Chicago, something with a little bit of, time to work with in a runway per se of sparking up a conversation. Now, what if you start boozing on that plane and you get shit-faced with her? That is kind of probably how you draw it up. You know what I mean? Like if you can maybe get her to have a drink with you, a cocktail, you're drinking a double, she's drinking a cider beer. Maybe she's having a Jack and Coke if she's kind of nails like that. Maybe you're flying into a city like Cincinnati or Cleveland or Milwaukee where she's got some sandpaper to her. I think that could be a play. But at the same time, I've never been a guy listen, what are the odds of you actually sitting by a hot chick. Now, I think about it every single time I walk onto a plane. I think every dude thinks about that because that's like the dream scenario. Not that you're ever even actually going to talk to her. It's just nice knowing there's a hot chick right there next to you.
Smells good, most likely skinny. It's not going to bother you.
Right.
You know, it is the perfect person to sit next to, even if you have no plans to talk to them.
Yeah, and it's like, but at the same time, then now my scout always is when I sit down on a plane, if that dream scenario does happen. Now, that's probably, I would say, like 1 out of 100. I would probably say it's happened to me. If I've been on, 300 plane rides, it's probably happened maybe 3 times, maybe even less than that. And that's probably as a 7 or higher. So I'm not even really counting in like a full-on rocket.
No.
But if I'm going to sit down and do that, which, I'm not the guy to really just spark it up just like that and try to wheel on a plane and join the Mile High Club. But the one thing I always do look for, and I do think this is a true veteran, like scouting analysis. Also, I always look at the fingers first, no matter how hot she is. Does she have a Dwayne Johnson on her finger, on that ring finger? Does she have a rock? Does she have a ring? And that is one of my pre-scouts I always do. And I even do that, like, if I'm looking across the bar and I see a decent group of chicks sitting down, I don't even go face first. Well, of course I do. I see the face, but it's immediately right down. And do you think that's a pretty good veteran scout, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You have to look at that because first off, you don't want to waste your time and you don't want to be that dick trying to wheel someone else's wife.
No.
So it's just like you need to notice that stuff. Now, if you're not looking at the ring, if you're not looking at the finger and you go up and attempt, you're just going to look like an idiot because most of the time, I mean, let's just be honest, they're going to shut you down right away. Now, some of them in Scottsdale, they might start talking to you, even though they have a Dwayne Johnson on their ring. But yeah, you definitely have to do. You have to check the ring or the finger in the hands. But Jordo, I actually had a teammate in Utah get paired up with a girl on one of our flights flying back to Salt Lake City. Sat next to her. He was actually, I think, 25 at the time. She was 34. He ended up marrying this girl. So he found his wife on a fucking flight.
Like a team flight?
Yeah. Like we were on a Southwest Bird, going back, all the boys. We see her getting onto the plane, and we're like, "Oh fuck!" Hopefully one of us sits next to her, hey boys?
Yeah.
And we get on, and this guy sits next to her, and he's like, "Fuck, I got it." Ends up marrying her.
Oh my God! See, the thing on Southwest too is you kind of control your destiny, a little more as well.
You know, you can choose to sit next to her if you want.
And I sure as shit know those Utah Grizzlies. You guys were in that C section on Southwest, C-52. So you walk on that bird, kind of everyone's, the dinner is already plated. Now you just have to go find your seat where you can maybe sneak in there because it's going to be a middle, but you're going to have a good chance of probably finding who she is if you're a lower C, say you're C-14. Now I got a pretty good chance of maybe sit next to her. That is actually hilarious. So he just started wheeling her, and then all of a sudden they were going on dates, and the next thing you know, they're married.
They had drinks. They had drinks on the flight, exchanged numbers, hung out like later that week, and then fucking rest is history. They're still married. They're living in Michigan now together.
No, so is he from Michigan originally, or is she from?
Yeah,
okay,
he's from Michigan.
She was living in Salt Lake City. So he packed up the shit, put her in the car, and we drove back to Michigan, and the rest is history. Did he live in did he stay and play a couple years after that?
He stayed and played like a year or two after that, I believe, and then moved back to Michigan, went to law school. He's a lawyer now. He's married to her. I mean, it's kind of a sick story.
He wants to be an astronaut one day. Folks, I don't think he can do it. That's crazy. That's hilarious. Wow. I mean, like they should be like the official spokespeople of Southwest because everyone wants Southwest to change up their seating. We all know it's terrible, but that is like a success story of controlling your own destiny. That's why you have your C-52 card, and that's why she had A-10. She wanted to sit somewhere. He ends up in the middle. The next thing you know, Azo, they are in love. Azo, let's bring it over to just speaking of some hockey talk, not necessarily, maybe guys that are sitting on Southwest Birds, but let's go over to the National League, and let's start at the top here. The 4 nations rosters were announced: USA, Canada, Finland, and Sweden. Now, before we get to our analysis of some USA-Canada picks, did you see those guys on Finland? Did you see the level
hilarious
of their pigment in their skin? I mean, those guys look like a glow stick on the bottle of a 1942 bottle coming out at XS or over at Hakkasan or at the Wet Deck, the Wet Republic, and the Sparkler Show. I mean, those guys look like full-on glow sticks or a stick of glue. Like, it was crazy.
The sun has to beat the shit out of those guys, eh?
Oh
Like,
my
when they're on the
God.
beach, like, the sun is just kicking the shit out of them. Like, they're
Imagine.
just cake and sunblock on. Like, fuck, I'm getting beat up out here.
Oh my God. Yeah, they ended up like the Red Lobster logo. But it's like, dude, you know you're going to have your headshots at the start of the year. Look, I played in Finland. I lived there for a year. I know the sun doesn't come out at all. I mean, right now in Finland, in northern Sweden and Finland, that sun is out for maybe 2 hours a day if you're lucky. It's gray. It's literally dark 22 hours of the day. So it makes sense that these guys have this sort of pigment to their skin and the paleness of like, oh my God, you look like a goddamn ghost fella. But in saying that, if you're showing up for team picture day, can't you, before the season starts, maybe sneak in a weekend in southern Spain, maybe in August, or maybe go down to Miami and put the SPF 140 on and just kind of try to get a little bit of a better base tan? Because that was hilarious. Like, they all looked the same, man. It was fucking so funny.
Yeah.
They looked like Draco Malfoy.
Yeah. Yeah. There was like one or two guys that like had a little bit of tint to them.
Yeah, like
But then
Teravainen.
after that, yeah. But then after that, it was like a white sheet.
It was insane. It was so funny, man. I was dying laughing when I saw that roster. But that team, Oslo, they're going to be sneaky good. Though, those guys are going to be mucking it up, playing hard. I mean, that's a not an easy out if you're looking at the other three teams. Like, they're pretty good.
They're good. They're real good. I mean, I think now obviously, there's going to be the best team out there. I think is still going to be Canada.
Yeah,
I think they edge everyone out a little bit, but any team there could beat any other team. I think. Like,
yeah,
all the players there are unbelievable.
100%. And I mean, if you're looking, let's go there. Let's go to Team Canada. Like, if you're looking at Team Canada and their roster, was there any surprises for you? I mean, I thought it was cool that Seth Jarvis is on the squad, because not only would I want to have a beer with that guy, but he's nasty on the sheet. He's one of those guys I probably didn't expect, but good for him. And another guy that kind of surprised me, but didn't at the same time, was Brandon Hagel. In terms of playing for John Cooper in Tampa Bay. Now, he had 2 goals last night. We're recording on Friday.
I saw that.
I mean, he's nasty, but he was maybe a little bit of a surprise for me. But I just think, like, don't you think they could have used a guy with some jam like Tommy Wilson? Or do you not want to even run the risk of that guy taking a 5-minute penalty?
Yeah, that had to have been there. That had to have been it.
Right?
Because you want a guy like that on your team. It doesn't really look like they have a guy like that on their team. A couple other guys I was surprised about, Jordan, was Sorelli and Travis Sanheim. Now, unbelievable players. You don't hear much about them, especially to play for Team Canada. So I was a little surprised to see those guys. But yeah, like, I don't know. There's a lot of guys left off, especially the U.S. and Canadian team. That was like, how'd they leave them off?
Yeah, for sure. And Sanheim, obviously, I think was a little bit of a surprise to me. I think that's more of a move for the future, too, of a guy like, maybe he's going to be the 7th, 8th defenseman this year, but next year for Team Canada at the Olympics, maybe he slides into the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
One guy, though, if he's healthy on the back end for Canada, is Drew Doughty. Now, Drew Doughty is still out with an injury, but if that guy's healthy, I don't know if I leave him off the team. I think, like, next year, if he's still at the level he can play at, he's on the Olympic team. Like, that guy's nasty.
Yeah, he's still unbelievable. Still logs, 27 minutes a night for the Kings, like he's been doing the last decade. I mean, yeah, you can't leave him off. There's certain guys, it's like when you think about the Ryder Cup, when people are pissed, they picked Justin Thomas to play for the Ryder Cup. You have to, like, he's got the history. I know he's not playing he might not be the best right now, but it's like all this history stuff and what he's done in his career, it still matters at the end of the day. Yeah,
for sure. And I just think, like, Doughty, to be effective too, he doesn't need to play on the power play. Like, you can play Makar, you can play Morrissey, you could even play Petro over those guys, or Shea Theodore. Doughty could play theoretically even on your third pair and play 15 minutes a night, play penalty kill. Like, if you're looking at their right shots, Makar, you could probably go Pietrangelo, and then I would go Doughty over Parayko if healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But Parayko, obviously, with that big, long reach, so hard to get around in the neutral zone, and just the way he can close on guys.
Yeah.
His puck play is obviously not crazy, but his stick is so fucking long and he
He's
skates so
huge.
well. You can't
Yeah.
get around him in the neutral zone. He's like a blanket.
Yeah, no, I actually I see people were kind of a little bit complaining about that pick, but I actually understand that pick because you already do have like the most skilled guys in the world on the back end there. You don't need another one. You actually do kind of need a guy like him who can, who's a big body out there. And we all know when it gets down to it and the best players in the world are playing, those big body defensemen who can defend are very important.
Yeah, for sure. And a low maintenance guy can penalty kill. And I do think Doug Armstrong being the GM, obviously in St. Louis and of this Four Nations team, has seen Colton Parayko in an effective role. And also when you're picking these guys, and some people were arguing about Parayko, maybe it should be Uyghur, Montour. It's like this guy's won a cup. And I think that holds so much weight is when you can have as many champions on your team. I mean, look at their back end. They got Makar, won a cup. Parayko, cup. Petro, cup. Theodore, Tays, both cups. You know what I mean? It's like, that's just crazy to me. It's like, you know, you always want to be surrounded by winners and guys that have played on the biggest stage because now those guys like that, they're not going to be rattled.
And Jordo, does Taves make this team if he's not Cale Makar's D partner?
No, but
you have to put him on now because
sure.
They're unbelievable. But if this guy, now I'm not saying Devin Taves isn't an unbelievable defender, he is. But if he is not Cale Makar's partner, I do not think he's on this team.
No, but if he's not on this team, if he's still playing in Long Island, so he's not even considered what he is now, a top 15 defender, probably in the world. Really, he is. His metrics check out, the way he skates, the way he can, again, the way he defends lines, the way he is able to just play off Makar. He's a top 10, 15 defenseman. If he's still in Long Island, nobody is even talking about him. That's a crazy thing.
Yeah. It's funny how that works.
It's wild. And obviously, friend of the show, JB Snow, probably going to be their starting goalie, hopefully, for Canada. So that's awesome to see. Mark Stone is another name. I thought it was just a little bit of a surprise. If like you're Kelly McCrimmon and you're Vegas, do you even want this guy playing with his recent back issues over the last 3 or 4 years? Or you're just like, you know what? I mean, you can't tell the guy not to go, but it's like, that guy is always so banged up. He was just kind of a surprise. Like when he's playing Ozzo, I do like his game, but I just thought he was maybe one of those question marks, and we'll even see if he makes it to February because they did name these teams so early.
Yeah, I know. I'm assuming there's going to be a bunch of players who are on these lists right now that don't actually go from injuries or whatever. Stone might be one of them. I mean, what are the odds Stone's on the IR until playoffs, anyways? And that's what Vegas wants, right? So, yeah, I was a little surprised to see that. I think there's going to be some new names on the list come tournament time, just from injuries and whatnot. So
yeah, for sure. And just moving right over south of the border to the U.S. team and the Americans. Any surprises there for you, Ozzo? I mean, I would think the one surprise, not even really a surprise, but just like, oh, okay, like Boldy on the team, Brock Nelson, obviously North Dakota guy. The more I thought about the Nelson one, the more it made sense. He can play up and down the lineup. He's a utility player, center wing, penalty kill, power play, 30 goal scorer, can play on a lower line, and he's low maintenance in terms of playing in the bottom six, even on a fourth line, and still be effective. The one guy that I just thought was the biggest surprise for me to be left off, and we had him on about a month ago, was TNT Thompson. I just think on that one-timer side, on the right side, on a power play, as a 13th forward even, Ozzo, I think I would have made room for TNT Thompson strictly for the power play and also just how big of a body he is. I mean, I think he could play on a third line, fourth line, maybe not, but I do think the way he's clicking, and I do like to ride hot hands when they're hot. And he's one of those guys I just thought, man, I would have made room for him somewhere.
I thought so too. That was one that I would, and to be honest, I was surprised to see Brock Nelson's name. Now, obviously, I'm not going to argue it. He's a North Dakota guy. I do think he brings value to this team. Like you said, he can play on any line really and do whatever they ask of him. But yeah, like Tage Thompson not being on the list was a shocker. Clayton Keller being left off was a little bit of a shocker to me. Now, I know there's not room for all these guys, so it makes sense. Jake Sanderson on the back end.
Yeah.
I was a little shocked to see that. Maybe like I don't know, man. Bring this guy in as a seventh. Like he's going to be on your Olympic team probably. He's only getting better. He's really young, so give him that experience. Maybe if you're thinking ahead to the Olympics, I don't know. That's just my thoughts, and I know I'm biased. I'm a North Dakota guy, but this Jake Sanderson, everyone else knows it. He's the real deal, and he's going to be. So I don't know about that, leaving him off. And then, Jordo, the biggest problem I have just looking at this list is you've got a guy named Patrick Kane in the league still, and he might be the best American hockey player of all time. How do you not just bring this guy in? I don't care if he doesn't even play. I don't even know if you don't like. It's just so it's so weird seeing a USA team with the best players in the world, and you got a guy Patrick Kane still playing hockey in the NHL, and he's not on the list. It's just it's crazy to see. I don't love seeing it. I understand, obviously, but
he's grinding. He's got 3 and 7. He's got 10 points in 21 games right this year. Fuck.
Yeah, I know it ain't great, but it's like fuck.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
He's the best American hockey player ever. Like, what?
Yeah, Showtime, dude. It's weird not seeing his name there, and I haven't watched a ton of Detroit games. He's played 21 of the 26, so it sounds like looks like he's been banged up a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you, man. Fucking Patty Kane. Like it's just death, taxes, and Patty Kane rocking the red, white, and blue. I mean, those are just 3 inevitables of life.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how, you go through a major surgery like that, Father Time kind of kicks in, and the young crew of this team, though, is pretty cool. I mean, Boldy's really young. You got some of these younger guys that are like,
oh, they're nasty. I mean, they're going to be nasty for a while.
For sure. And Jack Hughes, and I mean, even Larkin these guys are still in their prime, 28 odd years old, 34, Faber, Fox, Hannafin, Hughes, McAvoy, Slavin. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I still think if you're looking at both rosters, I do give probably the edge to Team Canada, but USA's right there, man. We're knocking on heaven's door. We're right around the corner, baby. We might not be on the penthouse, but we're one floor below.
The only difference to me, Jordo, is McDavid and Makar.
Yep.
That's the only difference. USA doesn't have a McDavid or a Makar. They've got guys that are very close to that, but just not that level. And no other team in the world has those two guys. So,
yep. And as well as, I mean, Eichel's good. 34 is good. Like this team is really good. Chris Kreider is probably a name. Like, listen, if you want to put him on a fourth line and just tell him to go forecheck like Luis Mendoza, I do think that is a good move. But I mean, the season he's having right now, he's an early Cy Young candidate. So he's 10-0. Like he's pitching at a level we have not seen. He has 10 goals, 0 assists.
He's going
to play on the fourth line. Yeah, no, but like
no.
So yeah, he's his season. I mean, the way he's been throwing. I mean, it's been crazy and fun to watch. And let's keep it in New York. We're gonna move along, but let's keep it in New York. We got a few different notes on the New York Strangers, as I would like to call them. Jacob Trouba recording here, Azo, on Friday morning, and it sounds like he will be moved. We're not sure if he's going to be waived, but it sounds like, to all accounts, last night he notified the team, I'm going to sleep on some of these options that they have in terms of proposed trades to where he wants to go, because he does have that no movement clause. And I believe it's, 15 odd teams, or it's a full move. I'm not sure, because Cap Friendly doesn't exist anymore, and I don't like Puckpedia. So I'm not exactly sure what his no move is, but it sounded like Jacob Trouba, the chin hunter, was going to sleep and mull his options, sleep on it, mull his options in terms of waking up on Friday and seeing what they're going to do. If they can't come to a trade of where he wants to go, it sounds like they will waive him, because they do have that right. And then any team in the league is free to pick him up. So we'll see where this goes. Trouba, I mean, he's catching a lot of slack lately, or flack. I don't know, Azo. I mean, he's not worth $8 million, but I do think somewhere as a number 4 or 5 defenseman, limit his minutes to 15 to 18 a night, and he can just go out there and focus on penalty kill and finding chins in the neutral zone, because he is that throwback player. He is a guy on the ice you have to be aware of. And I do think in a limited role, he can be pretty well suited. He's not a top 4 defenseman, maybe a 4. I would say better fit in a 5 that can play 4 minutes, but definitely not a top pairing defenseman like he's used in New York. And I just think and hope he gets a fresh start somewhere, because I do think he is that throwback type player and still could add value to not only a team, but a Stanley Cup winning team.
Oh, 100%. I'm actually wanted to ask you about this because I haven't watched the Rangers. I don't know what's going on, but when you see some team wanting to put their captain on waivers, it's like, what the hell's going on here? Is it strictly his cap, what he's getting paid? Because to me, it seems like he is still a good player out there, and I would think any team at the right price would love to have him in the lineup.
Yeah, it's his cap, it's his puck play, it's his positional play.
Has he been bad this
He
year?
hasn't been good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say he's, in all fairness, through 26 games, he hasn't been good. Does that make him washed up at this point of a guy that has a body of work of almost 700 games? No, I don't think so. I think probably once the trade rumors came out, you know how that is. You're playing in New York, Original Six franchise. Just the blue shirts, those fucking gritty blue collar fans are all over you. The
Mhm.
news and the media is crazy. I just think it's probably gotten to his head, and he's probably not able to paint his way out of it per se, because he is a painter.
Yeah.
So I just think he needs a full on reset. Get somewhere where the media and the market isn't as big. Hopefully that's not in Canada where all eyes are on you. You're under a microscope. Get him to a place, I don't know, Detroit, even Man Jose, somewhere else. I mean, who knows? Who knows? He could go to a contender. He could go provide leadership as a team, an up-and-coming team that's not even close, like Man Jose. I just think he needs a full-on reset and kind of go from there. Hopefully it will be to a contender, though, so we can kind of see Trouba in a minimized role or a lesser role and see what he can do that way.
Who doesn't want that guy on their playoff roster just
I know.
burying people? Like, just taking heads off. Like, that is what you want, that guy on your playoff roster, especially if he's a 5'6". I mean, that you'd love that. Just send your third pair out there to go dummy someone. Like, he's going to do it.
100%. And, I mean, Timo Meier, how he hit him 2 years ago, like, Timo Meier hasn't been the same since.
No.
Like, Timo Meier is a guy that I skated with in Switzerland. He was a guy even in August when he was skating with our team during training camp. He'd drop the shoulder, go to the net, expect not to get hit through the middle of the ice, maybe play a little bit with his head down, but a very big and prolific power forward. And when Trouba found his chin in the middle of the ice, just over the blue line in that playoff series, in the Battle of the Hudson, like Timo Meier I haven't seen him take it to the net hard. I haven't seen him be that physical beast.
That can change a guy.
That hit literally changed him. It did.
It can change a guy. I mean, especially it's like getting knocked out in a fight. Sometimes it's like you can never come back from it because you're like, he's got demons.
Yeah, and you're just like, I don't want that feeling ever again. I don't want to be eaten through a straw. I don't want to be seeing stars and being absolutely conked out of my chin. But yeah, it's just so like the amount of fear I just think Trouba instills in his opponents, and the way you have to recognize and be aware of him on the ice when you're out there, and especially at playoff time, Ozzo, I think is a big value, because I do think, as much as we want to talk about skill, speed, and just how good the game is that way, fear is still a component, and hitting is still a component. And when you have a guy willing to do both and does both, man, that's a pretty valuable asset, at least in my eyes.
Oh, 100% it is. Yeah, I truly think if at the right price, he's valuable on any team in the league.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? We're talking Devils Rangers there. And did you see the comments from Steve Valiquette the other night? He was talking
idiot.
Talking about Jack Hughes. I mean, relax, pal. It's not the first guy that's ever gone to the one hand on a breakaway. Trying to embarrass a goalie that's like a Vezina caliber goalie. Like, Jack Hughes has 1 second to think what he's going to do on a breakaway. How is that trying to embarrass him mid-game in a National Hockey League game when the score is within a goal? Like,
he's trying to score a goal, so he tried to embarrass the goalie. So that
was insane.
He shouldn't have tried to score a goal. That's trying to embarrass the goalie. And like, what are you, a fucking idiot? Like, what are you talking about?
I mean, I get the point of where he was saying, you know what I mean? Like, there was no response from the Rangers in terms of, like, not necessarily of Jack Hughes embarrassing him, but like no response of just like any pushback in the game. But dude, what you were saying in your message made no sense. Like, even if he was trying to embarrass the goalie, which you are trying to do one way or the other when you're scoring a goal or attempting to score a goal, You're trying to embarrass the goalie. Every time I got a breakaway, not many. I was actually a shootout guy in the AHL. Howard, I'd always shoot 3. I would not only want to score on that goal, Azo, I would think on that goalie, I would literally think about it and be like, how can I embarrass this guy? How can I put him in the
100%.
corner and just skate this puck right along the ice into the net? It's like, no matter how it's done, yeah, I want to embarrass him. Or you
100%.
come down and you shoot right along the ice on the river, as we call it, and go 5-hole, and the goalie doesn't even move. You just stun him. That's embarrassing. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you talking about, dude? It's a National Hockey League.
I'm trying to embarrass every single player on the other team as much as I possibly can. Like, what are you
Yes.
talking about? That's what that's why we're out here.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
How sick was it, too? I used to do it in the jungle about once a season, and the other team would get so mad. I would do that play, Azo, when a guy's forechecking you from the one side and you bank it off the net. You know what I mean? So, like,
Sick.
he's
Oh,
doing the
yeah.
flyby,
Yeah.
and he's doing the flyby on you, and you're in the back of the net, sitting on the trapezoid, and you're kind of just right along the goal line, or sorry, right along the wall. You're hugging the
Mhm.
wall, and that guy comes in, and you go the little bank pass. That was always the sickest play. You risk getting absolutely blown up, but a lot of
Oh,
times
yeah.
they're just trying to swipe the puck.
Most of
And
the
you-
time they skate by.
Yes, most of the time they skate by until they don't. I got our boy Garrett Wilson on that because I knew he wasn't going to hit me. I was in Bridgeport and he was in Toronto, and he skated by and I got him. He's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Fuck you! I'm gonna bury you next time." I'm just dying laughing.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
after the game, we talked about it, but it was so funny. I got him on it though. Classic play. But that's embarrassing a guy. Like, that's not-
100%.
right? Like, I would
Yeah.
love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit a guy, you're embarrassing him. Like, it's
Yep.
embarrassing to get hit and fall over. Like,
100%.
That guy that just hit you was trying to embarrass you, and he fucking did just that. That's what you're out there for.
Yeah, so that was just what a dipshit. So that guy put him on just, I don't know, put him on a leave for about 10 days. Georgie Peros, 7 to 10 day suspension, maybe a fine. Like, come on, Steve Etiquette, get it together, buddy. I know you're a goalie, you don't really know the game, so it is what it is. Azo, speaking of getting embarrassed, well, fuck me. Luke Richardson packed his shit in Chicago. I mean, Kyle Davidson brings this guy in and then obviously fires him. The coaching carousel is literally insane these days in the NHL. But it's like, what is Luke Richardson supposed to do? Last year, you gave him the Rockford Ice Hogs. This year, you bring in a few veterans, but they're like random pieces and a lot of guys on the back nine of their career. You try to surround Bedard with some older guys that have had decent years in the past.
Mhm.
But it's like, what is Luke Richardson supposed to do? I know he was shuffling up the lines. I know he probably shouldn't have scratched Taylor Hall, but like, if you're Lukey Richardson, like, you just set that guy up to fucking fail if you're Kyle Davidson at the same time. It's like, what is that guy supposed to do, Azo? I mean, come on. Like,
Yeah,
I
there's-
was like, yeah, good try. You're a good guy. Like, sorry.
Yeah, it's a little bit like yeah, like, how are you supposed to win teams with that or win games with that roster?
Right.
You're not going to. So, yeah, I mean, there had to have been something else going on. The players didn't like him, or GM didn't like him, or something. I don't know the story, but you certainly can't fire the guy for losing hockey games with that roster and what they're going through right now. Like, that can't be it, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. I just think like it must have came from within. I don't know if it was,
Yeah.
it sounded like last year, like Luke Richardson was taking care of Bedard and, they were living in the
Mhm.
same building and, him and Foligno were kind of the guys he was leaning on in terms of a young kid. And obviously Bedard had his mom there and different things. So, he was getting help from, by the community. But I just think like if you're Chicago and you're looking at that, you're like, oh my God. Like, so you fire him and now you bring in Anders Sorensen, who coached me and Nick for at least 5 years in Chicago with the Chicago Mission. Now, this guy is an unbelievable coach. Godfather to Willie Stiles and Alex Nylander, one of Michael Nylander's good buddies from Sweden. Anders, I believe, is the first Swedish coach in NHL history, which is
Really?
a crazy nugget. Yep.
Holy
So-
shit.
Good for Anders. And honestly, Azo, like, they better not do this guy dirty. Okay, Kyle Davidson, if you're going to fire Luke Richardson mid-season, you better have a fucking plan of Anders Sorensen is your guy moving forward through this rebuild. Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Where did they get this guy from? Was he on the staff
Rockford.
already? Oh, he was in Rockford.
Yep, head coach.
So is that where he went after? Because I saw what was he coaching? The Mission?
Yep, he was coaching the
You
Mission.
guys-
He was like the head of player development for the Mission, the head, coach like he was like basically the president of operations at the Mission for years.
It's a pretty
And
nail
then-
story.
And then he went to Rockford as an assistant or an associate head coach. He coached under Derek King, I believe the guy's name was, for I think 3 years maybe, and then got the head coaching job in Rockford. Has been the head coach there for 3 years, and now finally is getting his chance. But I'm just thinking, like, if you're Kyle Davidson, like, dude, okay, now this better be your guy, because you can't slap an interim tag on Anders and then gas him at the end of the season and then bring in someone else. Like, that would be crazy. Like, if you wanted to bring in, say, a guy like Jay Woodcroft, aka Jay Wrenchcroft, you should have done it right now. Don't bring in Anders until the end of the season with this fucking dog shit roster and then be like, hey, buddy, you didn't cut it. You went 15 and 40. Like, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what's he supposed to do right
Exactly.
now? Yeah. And then he's out of a head coaching job in Rockford because someone
Correct.
already took that, and then you can't go back, and then you're just fucked. It's like what Saints going through in Omaha right now. It's just shit.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the ultimate dick slap would be like, hey, we're not going to bring you back for the head coaching job here, but, you can stay on staff. Okay, great. Oh, yeah, we're going to send you back to Rockford. Fuck you. Like, no chance.
No.
You get a taste of the National League. I'm staying here. Yeah, what happened to our, Colton St. Clair, obviously a teammate we played with, Ozzo, as we're, getting a little bit off topic, kind of dropping down 3 or 4 leagues, going to the USHL. But so Omaha, how many coaches have they fired this year? Is that 2 in the first 20 games?
That's 2 this year. And what I've heard is, I don't know if these numbers are true, but it's been a lot of coaches since this buddy.
Oh, a ton. Yeah.
Bought the team. I think it's been 9 coaches. He's owned the team for 3 years or something. He bought the team so his son could play for it. And apparently this guy just doesn't think anyone can coach a hockey team. It sounds like he hired some guy who coached his kid in squirts or something back home. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. But I don't know how you take that job if you're a coach. Why are you accepting?
So Saint was coaching in the NA, I believe, in northern Minnesota.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
And he got the call up to the USHL earlier this year. What was it, a month ago, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And then they canned him just, a week ago?
Yep. Canned him a week ago. They have a terrible roster, so they're not a good team. I don't think they're a great team right now. I don't know if that has to do with, their coaches or what, if the players are bad or if they just have bad, they haven't had a coach to coach them. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, this guy's making a mockery of the league, basically.
Doesn't the owner want to coach the team too?
It sounds to me like that is the problem with all these coaches that he's firing. He wants the coach to do a certain thing, and the coach is like, well, what are you talking about? I'm the coach.
Right.
I'll make the decision. And then he's like, oh, yeah, you will, buddy? I'm the fucking owner. You're fired. I think that's what he's doing.
So he's a Gerald Jones of the USHL. He's just a complete micromanager.
Oh, yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm not too close to the situation, and I haven't asked a ton of people about it, but that's what I'm making. That's what I'm getting.
Man, that sucks for Saint. I hope he lands on his feet. And as a couple assholes over here, middle-aged assholes, fuck this guy. Let's shine some light on the USHL and the Omaha Lancers. Hopefully they can figure that out, because that just seems like such an avoidable situation. You probably can't force the sale of a USHL team, because you know what I mean. They want all the owners they can get in that league in terms of that. Probably have a little bit of a bankroll, but it's that just sucks for Saint, because now Saint's out of a job, not only in the USHL, but he just left his team in the NA. It's where do you go from there? You kind of just Billy Idol for the next 6-7 months, and you could ride it out and maybe scout for a couple teams, Ozzo, and then try to land a job probably next year. Saint he'll be all right. He's a great coach, and his chin's good. He's solid. He's been doing it for a while, but it's that sucks for Saint, man.
It's such a shit burger sandwich to eat. You can't go back to the NAHL team now. You just got fired. You probably can't find another job mid-season, because no one else is firing their coach mid-season.
Yeah.
Especially in the USHL. So where does he get a paycheck? Does Saint have to go get a job now to try to pay his bills? How does that work? Does he get paid for the rest of the season? I don't know how those contracts work, but
yeah, he should get paid for the rest of the season for sure.
That's what I mean. I hope he does, so he doesn't have to go find it, because that's just a shit situation. I looked this guy up, Jordo, this owner, and I think it looked like he used to be like a money manager. Now, don't quote me on this. I don't want to get in trouble and try to get some, like I'm trying to smear this guy's image or whatever. But it looks like he was a money manager that was barred from managing people's money. So he's not allowed to do it anymore. And he used to do it in New York City, and he can't do it anymore, essentially. So that's kind of seems like the type of guy this guy is. I'm not sure, but it's definitely weird.
Yeah, that is weird. But Ozo, moving right along to, well, a little bit of football talk here. We're going to go to the NFL. We're going to go to our locks of the week, my friend. Obviously, last night, my Packers, they went down swinging in the good city of Detroit. That is the dirty, baby. That was 34-31 on a Thursday night game. Again, this is week 14. So if you're looking at the big board, you're going to give the people one lock for week 14. Ozo, what are you looking at, my friend? What game stands out to you?
So this game, I think, is the biggest lock from what I could find. It's the Buccaneers at home versus the Raiders. Buccaneers minus 6.5 at home. Now the Raiders they're in tank. They're tanking. They want to get that first pick. They don't want to win another game. The Bucs just got back. Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield's playing well, slinging the ball, and they're still kind of trying to get first place in their division. So they're gonna blow out the Raiders. It's not even gonna be a close game. They're gonna win by more than a touchdown for sure. So that is my lock of the week. Yeah,
that's a good pick. I mean, Antonio Pierce, those guys, their shit's been packed forever in Las Vegas. They're like, get me on the Strip, get me up to Stadium Swim at Circa, and let's just get some tits in our face and get to week 18 and get the fuck out of here. So yeah, I like that pick. Ozo, I am gonna go to a game that is a rematch from a couple of weeks ago. That game, though, was in Cleveland. That was on the Mistake on the Lake. And that's the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this game is going to be at Heinz Field. We're going into the chin of the Rust Belt. We're going to the black and yellow Mike Tomlin with the drive-by ones on. Those are the black Air Force ones. This game, -6 and a hook. The rematch of that game that was in the snow the other week. How sick was that, by the way? The Mistake on the Lake with the snow on the field. You got to love it. Cleveland, Jameis Winston. I mean, that guy is just an all-time quote. But I do think the Steelers are going to win this one, just the rematch. They lost that greasy game a couple weeks ago to the brothers of the Browns. So I got the Steelers. I got that game -6 and a hook at home. They're going to win the rematch and take that one against the Cleveland Browns. So that is my NFL lock of the week for week 14. And I just want to get a status update, Ozo, if you had heard anything, a chin update, if you will. How was Trevor Lawrence's chin feeling right now? Oh, my God, did he get smacked last week? Fell alive in 5, posted that clip. Jesus Christ. And it was funny because like a guy like Tom Brady came out and said, you know what? You got to actually have your chin more tucked there, and you got to get down quicker. So he wasn't even putting the onus on the quarterback being a former quarterback. He was saying Lawrence has to have better awareness and not put himself in that position. Now, as a guy that played football and you understand most of the rules, you are a hockey guy at heart. How'd you feel about that? I mean, at the same time, you can't just go chin hunting like that, can you? If the other guy got what, 5-game suspension?
Yeah, it was as bad of a hit you see in the NFL nowadays. But it's hard on the defender, Jordo, because I've watched games where they do have to change the rules of this sliding thing, because this sliding thing is fucking dangerous. When you slide feet first, the defender's coming at you. I mean, you are opening up your head. And I've literally seen Patrick Mahomes fake a slide and gain like 15 more yards. So it's like, as a defender, how do you know when to lay off, or if he's just going to fake the slide and keep running, or grab 5 to 6 extra yards because he, slides late or acts like he's going to slide so no one hits him, so then he runs forward and, puts the ball forward. I just think it's too catered to the quarterback. I think the slide is just dangerous in the first place. Like sliding feet first with defenders running at you and diving at you, it's like you're putting yourself in harm's way, especially if you're doing it late. I think they have to penalize a fake slide now. because these defenders don't know if you're going to fake slide or keep running and then slide late because you want to grab a couple extra yards. It's just it's such a dumb rule, and that hit was terrible. I don't know how long Trevor Lawrence is going to have a conky from that one. I mean, he might have a conky for a year. I mean, I'm surprised his head didn't get decapitated. Like that was as bad as it gets. But
Leonardo decapitated for sure, dude. That hit though, like if you're a defender and you're say an outside linebacker or a safety, and you're trying to protect that first down line, or even just stand your ground in terms of not giving up too much real estate. It's got to be so hard to lay off that when you see a guy just running at you, like especially being football guys, like all those guys, they see red when that happens, and they're like he probably like blacked out for a second, and just it was like a split-second decision. He's like, "Oh fuck, that's not a running back. That's sunshine, Trevor Lawrence, and I am going to absolutely blow his chin off."
Oh yeah, you almost can't. You can't blame them. It's so funny. You're so right. I mean, one of your boys on the Packers, he's been a repeat offender. He just cannot help himself. Quay Walker. He is a fucking bull out there. Someone just pisses him off. He takes a dumb penalty every game I watch, I think. Like it's just clockwork, dumb penalty. Someone will piss him off and he'll just do the dumbest shit ever. It's like he can't help himself. He knows he can't do that, and he just still can't not do it. It's like Trouba taking heads off too.
Yeah, I mean, dude, we're talking about football guys. Like we're talking about literally just a bunch of fucking farm animals. Like that. Remember, Myles Garrett literally took the helmet of another guy and smashed it on his head. He could have killed him. He literally could have killed Mason Rudolph. And he only got like 5 or 6 games for that, I remember. I was like, how is that not like a lifetime ban? That was the craziest play I've ever seen. He used a football helmet, which we know is heavy as fuck, as a deadly weapon and smashed a guy's skull. Like, what? And then came back and played that season. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, that was insane.
But that's their job, is to, you know, inflict pain. You know, that's what they're out there for. That's what they love to do. You know?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a crazy sport. So we hope Trevor Lawrence, sunshine over there, buddy. Keep your chin tucked next time. That was just the chin update brought to you by Butter Golf over here. Azo, moving right along to the one hitters with the captain. This week, brother, I wanted to keep it simple. I wanted to keep it safe, and I wanted to keep it sexy. So if you're looking at this time of year, we're recording on December the 5th, man, and we're looking at Christmas movies. And we're looking at some of the best ones out there. 2 of my favorites are Elf and Bad Santa. So if you're looking at the Ausmus household and you're looking at maybe sitting down with the parents, maybe you're sitting down with Gabby and you're just enjoying a nice Irish coffee or maybe a hot cocoa, you're getting in the Christmas spirit. You got the lights out, the tree is lit up. Are you watching Elf or Bad Santa? Like, what's the Azo take on that?
Yeah, both great movies. If I'm with the family and, you know, the Christmas tree's on and it's like 7 p.m. or something, I'm probably putting Elf on. That's the one I'm going to go with there. Now, if I come home from the bar and I'm having a beer on the couch by myself, you know, and I got my hand in my pants, you know, just sitting there relaxing, I'm definitely throwing on Bad Santa, 100%. So there's a time and place for each movie.
Dude, I mean, Bad Santa is just all time. Like
It's
Thurman
so
Merman
good.
and Billy Bob Thornton's character is legit all time. What's that black midget's name in real life?
God.
Like, he is so funny in that movie, dude.
He's so funny.
Oh, Tony Cox, yeah. Tony Cox.
That's his name. That's his real name.
Tony Joseph Anthony Cox. Yep, that is his name. He's 3'6". He's born in 1958 out of Uniontown, Alabama. That guy is so funny in that movie, like just a full-on criminal. And Billy Bob Thornton, aka Willie Soak, is all time. And then Thurman Merman, can I fix you some sandwiches? Like, Billy is just drunk as hell the whole time. Like it,
Oh,
like
yeah.
that character is so good.
How does he act that? Like when you're the actor, they're like, are you a little bit tuned up while you're acting to like play into it, like a little bit of a method actor, but does he just know how to act that well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, and I do think like if you look at just acting and you see guys like play similar roles, like Billy Bob Thornton in Bad News Bears is pretty similar to Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa, right?
Yeah,
Like if you
yeah,
look at Bad News Bears,
yes,
I mean he's coaching a little league team and they're sponsored by Bo Peep's Gentlemen's Club. You know what I mean? Like that's their
yeah,
main sponsor, and he's a drunk and he's a coach. Now he's a drunk Santa Claus guy, still around kids in malls. You know, just like different. It's pretty
yeah,
similar. You know, it's
yeah.
similar to like how Owen
It is.
Wilson would always play a kind of a similar role, or Vince Vaughn. Like
Uh huh.
you know, like a lot of these guys have that role down, and Billy, that's kind of a cross I kind of noticed. You know what I mean?
For sure, there's definitely similarities there, and he plays that actor just unbelievably well for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go throw that on tonight, maybe after I have a couple, and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
just get on the couch. It's so nice too if you have like a fireplace and you can throw that movie on, and like you said, it's honestly the best watching it drunk. Like
yeah, oh
like
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's like there's
yeah.
one of those movies where you're like, I gotta be drunk to watch this.
Oh yeah, you want to be because
Yep.
he's drunk, so you're like,
Yeah,
fuck,
yeah,
like I,
yeah.
I, I gotta get on his level.
And they're going to rob department stores at malls like that they work at. Like it's
Yeah,
just all time. So
yeah.
yeah, those are both good movies. I agree with you, Ozzo. Great take on that. People's term of the week is jammer. Now, having a jammer is having a heart attack. And we don't wish a heart attack on anyone. As Tim McGraw said one time in Where the Green Grass Grows, he said a 99-cent heart attack. So that would be a 99-cent jammer. Ozzo, we always joke about it, but you know what? Having a jammer on the resume and being able to tell the story is sneaky kind of nails. Your buddy's dad is telling you about how he had a heart attack 3 years ago and he's 12 beers deep. Have you changed your lifestyle up at all, Brian? No, I
No,
haven't.
haven't.
Because you know what? My cholesterol is through the roof. I still like to drink, and one of my arteries is still clogged. Are you worried about it? Nope. They put a stent in there. It should be all good. So having a jammer, Ozzo, is always a joke we have in the locker room, or if we're on a trip together, it's like, fuck, day 3 of a bender. How you feeling? Well, buddy, I'm just not trying to have a jammer. That's it. You know, you're sitting
Yeah,
at the bar, you got the hot
he's trying to
sweats.
avoid a jammer.
Yeah, you're sitting there. It's like, or you're after a hard workout. Back in the day, you know, maybe we got bag skated by Hackstall. You're like, holy fuck, how you feeling? Well, I'm seeing stars right now. Yeah, me too, but I'm just not trying to have a jammer right now. Like,
Oh yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah,
jammer is
guy takes the edible when he's hungover to try to get rid of his headache, and then he gets anxiety, and he's like, "Holy fuck, boys! I think I'm having a jammer."
yeah.
Oh, you're okay. You're just high.
It's always funny too, because you're like, what happened to that guy? Why is he not playing tonight? Fuck, I think he had a jammer. Yeah, he's out of the lineup tonight. And so the word jammer is always thrown out throughout locker rooms when we're hanging out with the fellas. So that is a sneaky good one. And it's always such a good joke because you're like, fuck, you know, where's Joey? Oh fuck. Yeah. I think Bud's had a jammer last night. Yeah, he's gonna be a scratch tonight. So folks, that is the People's Insider term of the week, a jammer. Write that one down, put it in your pipe, and smoke it. Ozzo, moving over to the nail gun of the week, fella. There was a couple nail guns out there this week, but who stood out to you in your mind and your chin?
Yeah, I had two. They're not the greatest, but they are nail gun shit. And my first one, Dan Campbell, Thursday Night Football, calling plays like an absolute maniac, psychotic, going for it on fourth down on his own 20, and going for it on fourth down with 40 seconds left, and just fucking absolutely just sticking to his guns, not listening to any of his staff members telling him to kick the ball and take the lead. No, fuck you. We're going for it. Well, Dan, we can win the game with this kick right here. We don't have to go for it. I don't fucking care. It's fourth down. I want to go for it. So he goes for it because he's a goddamn nail gun. So I got to shout him out. I mean, that guy's a maniac. And then I'm also going to shout out the Russian machine, Alex Ovechkin, 17 days after his injury, back on the ice, looking good as ever. What a fucking nail gun that guy is.
Yeah, Dan Campbell is either going to win a Super Bowl with those nuts or he's going to continue to strike out. But you know what? He's going to be going down swinging. Ovi back on the sheet. You love to see that. who knows what kind of Russian Percocets he's on, but he looked good. Looked like he was skating pretty good.
Yeah,
Good knee bend for
he
a
did.
broken leg. So shout out to the great 8. Hopefully he's back soon. And I just have a hard time believing that was like a big time break or fracture. Had to be like a hairline fracture, no?
Yeah, it had to have been real light. Not a huge issue. If he's back on the ice already, because
Right.
I mean, unless vodka and Domino's pizza heals bones, which I don't think it does, but
Yeah. And who knows? I mean, that guy, he's probably just getting gassed up with whatever he needs. So good on those guys. Ozzo, my nail gun of the week. Post Malone. Post Malone was in Utah this past week. He was sitting on the glass with Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz, but more importantly, the Utah Hockey Club. And the night of the game, after the match, I got a snap. It was into the wee hours of the night, and it came from Nick. And it was Posty Malone playing wagon wheel with a dart in his mouth, Bud Light in hand, and then obviously the 6 string. So when he would put down the Bud Light, he'd be strumming. He was singing with the dart in his mouth, wagon wheel. I think he was taking requests from the fellas. And then the following night, they had their Christmas party. And who showed up? Well, Posty Malone again. So I just thought that was so
all
nailed.
time.
I thought that's pretty cool. Posty's hanging out with hockey guys. Obviously, he was on the beer pong table. So that was cool to see, cool to hear. I wish I was there. Those are the nights you're just jealous of guys in the National League because you know what? Most guys ain't playing a best of 9 with Post Malone. And Post Malone, I mean, he's one of my favorites. I saw him in concert, Ozzo, on his first tour ever. He was going around with the Beebs, and it was actually at the Target Center in Minneapolis, and he did White Iverson 3 times, and he sang 4 songs total. And he was just going up double OT, and he would raise it up with the 2, and he was a little bit fatter back then, and I did more drugs and, all hopped up on something. He was like, who is this? I knew the song, but I was like, wow, like, he is really just like a white boy reggae type of dude. And now he's singing all types of genres and hanging out with hockey guys and playing beer pong. But Posty does generally seem like one of those cool dudes in show.
Yes, he's actually just a cool dude, I think. And yeah, it speaks. He's living in. I think he's got a place in Park City and that he spends time at. That's probably why he's there. But yeah, that guy's awesome, man. Did they say like what he was like? Just to talk to, was he pretty normal, or is he like
Yeah, they said
artists. Was he?
They
cool?
said he was cool. Yeah, they said he was cool.
Yeah, that's sweet. Because some of those artists, I mean, you can imagine like they're just different.
For sure.
Almost got to be to be that good at music. Like you can't really have a normal brain.
No, you can't. And then the next thing you know, you're 16 years old and Diddy gets a hold of you, and now you're really screwed up. Now you got some real fucking problems, Jeremy. So
some real problems, Jeremy.
Yeah. Try getting jacked off under the table. You're having some real fucking problems, jackass. What a woman made you feel your fake cans? What a snap out of it.
Would you motorboater, you sailor?
Yeah, you old sailor, you.
You old sailor, you.
Some older woman made you feel her fake cans? What are you fucking have some real fucking problems getting jacked off under the table, jackass. So all-time Ozzo, we send it over to Bryn Chyzyk, GM of the Waterloo Blackhawks. Great chat with Chiz this week. You know what? He's always eyebrows down, mean mugging, but it was good to talk to Chizzy. I think the people really enjoy this conversation. A lot of in-depth hockey talk in terms of the state of the USHL, college hockey, as well as just different things in and around the game. One of the brightest hockey minds that people may not know about is Brent Chizyk. I do think someday Ozzo he'll be a GM of a National League team
for sure.
So, it was a great chat, and obviously roommate of mine for 3 years. One of the dirtiest guys I've ever lived with, probably the dirtiest, but he's got a good wife now, and I'm sure he's cleaned it up. So let's send it over to Brent Chizyk. Ozzo, that was episode 67. Always tape to tape with the captain. Fella, have a good weekend. I will chat with you next week. Low and slow, baby. Woo! All righty, folks. Welcome back to Live in 5, baby. Today, joining us, my former roommate of 3 years at the University of North Dakota, Verdon, Manitoba's finest, the head GM of the Waterloo Blackhawks. Folks, he was the GM of the year one year. An all-time guy, Toba guy, throws both ways. Brent Chizyk, welcome to the Live in 5 podcast. It's about time we tracked you down, my friend.
Thanks, Schmaltz. I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully I can live up to the great guests before me on this show.
Yeah, we've had a few good ones, a couple mid ones, but you know what? Every guy, Ozzo, when they come on Live in 5 is a legend in their own right. That's all we have on this program. But Chiz, I wanted to start it off at the top with you. Obviously managing the team down in PartyTown, the USHL. How's it looking down there in terms of in Waterloo? How's the squad looking? How's Schmaby doing? What's up with the latest there? You're probably, what, 30 odd games into the season?
Yeah, I think right now we're probably 23 games in. Things are good. We're kind of 3-4 years into when me and Smaby started, and we kind of have a way of running things now, and kind of things are off the ground, and we have all our own guys in there, so things are good. I guess this part of the year, everyone's kind of in the middle of the standings and trying to see who takes the next step to kind of climb to the top, as it is in the USHL. But overall, things are pretty good in PartyTown.
Chiz, when you first, I'll wind the clocks back, when you first took this job, you didn't really have any actual general managing experience. Like, what was that like? How long did it take for you to like kind of get up to speed and kind of know what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I always wanted this role, like even as a young kid, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys remember in college, I had all these stupid spreadsheets I'm doing with hockey shit. And, I was excited about that part. Like I thought it was like a video game at that point. And then I quickly realized that like the scouting and the trading is like 5% of the job. And, dealing with agents, dealing with players, dealing with development, dealing with budgets. And like it quickly set in that it's not like you're on an Xbox game just drafting and trading players.
Yeah.
So I think like that was kind of like my, oh shit, there's a lot that goes into this moment. And like, I guess figuring that out, I picked it up pretty quick and, trying to manage all those relationships. But that was kind of like right away when I took it at a young age, I was like, oh man, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be a little bit.
You still had those sick trades, though. I think in your first year, you're like making trades in the draft and stuff. I was like, okay, that's a Chizyk I know right there.
Yeah, I was being a little young and aggressive back then. But as far as, I don't know, just like the whole agency world and just the other side of management was an eye opener to me. And I think I've been very fortunate to be in that position at a young age because there's a lot to learn, and I still got a lot to learn in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And Chiz, I wanted to ask you and give the listeners just a little intel of what the day-to-day is like for a general manager. Obviously, it's putting out fires with agents. Why isn't Johnny playing? You drafted Johnny high, or you're talking maybe to some pro scouts, different things for players on your roster. And then you got to watch kids maybe at a U14, U15 level because the draft and different things, that doesn't stop of trying to develop and get talent. So what is the day-to-day? Do you have like a weekly schedule of what you're going to do, or is it kind of just come and go as the days go?
Yeah, I have a kind of a loose structure, but a lot of it is whatever fire pops up or whatever needs handled, right? In my situation, I'm based in Minneapolis with the team in Waterloo. And when I took the job, it just made a lot more sense for me to stay here as far as being in the rink scouting. And, I go down to Waterloo probably once every 2 weeks, normally during the week, just to have more conversations. It'd be more fun to be there for the games, but it's hard to have a lot of conversations on game day. I would say throughout the course of the week, like in the morning, check in with the coaching staff, making sure we have a plan for the day, plan for the weekend, kind of checking in to see what's going on there. Then probably talking to the colleges and agents and for our guys in our team and the next guys coming. And then kind of shift probably to some Instat video. We're very fortunate now with all the video technology that you type in a player's name and you can watch 3 games in an hour, which definitely helps as opposed to flying or driving somewhere. And then in Minnesota here, usually in this time of year, it's driving to a Minnesota high school game at night and trying to learn something there. So it definitely isn't an 8-hour day. It's kind of broken up in some weird time frames, but that's probably a little bit of the lay of the land of what my day looks like.
When you're recruiting these kids, Chiz, or just scouting them, I guess, and watching them, how much actually is it like, are you just strictly watching their shifts and like, okay, this is a good hockey player, we want him? Or are you doing a little more background research and like, looking into the parents, kind of who the kid's friends with, or is that too deep and you're just kind of looking at the shifts?
No, I think that portion of it, I think that's a big portion of our draft process and draft philosophy. I think that those type of questions come as we get closer to the draft. Right now, we're just trying to flag guys that have talent and have the ability and the type of players that we're looking for. And then as we get into the last month before the draft, we're calling their coaches. We're trying to dig behind the scenes to make sure we're getting the right kid and the right family because, the junior hockey process can be long. And when you have people in players' ears that are telling them the wrong things or certain upbringings where they're a jumper, it's not somebody we want in our organization. They kind of have to be raised the right way and kind of bought into the whole process.
And Chyz, I wanted to ask you, there's always agents or college coaches calling you about players that they're trying to push guys on you. They're telling you he's the next best thing since sliced bread. And they're telling you about how good this kid is, what he's going to be. You might have to stay with him a little bit at the start of the year. So how many of those times do you have to kind of not take the goggles off, but just look at it in a sense of trust your own evaluation and then go back to an agent or say an assistant coach in college or a head coach and be like, fella, with all due respect, this guy's probably not going to play for us this year. But I'll continue to watch them because I'm sure that happens all the time with every GM.
For sure. And I think it was difficult at the start, and it's a lot easier now because with relationships, you know which guys are shooting you straight and which guys are feeding you bullshit. Like if it was a guy in my first year that, fed me a name that wasn't very good, like he probably isn't getting, if he brings me a name now, I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to watch that kid, right? Like, but then there's other guys in other colleges that like when they say something, it's genuine and it's worth your time. So I think those relationships help weed out a lot of that. And at the end of the day, like I think some people in this industry go a lot off word of mouth and what people tell them to do. And I have to live with the results of a draft or results of the player I take. So I try and separate a lot of that and just make up my own opinion on the player and roll with it.
And I wanted to ask you, Chyz, now everyone's got mentors in the game and even in life. Are there some GMs in the National Hockey League or pro scouts or even guys in college you kind of lean on for advice or someone that's really, been there for you when you have to ask a question or just anything on the daily? I always am curious on that.
Yeah, I like to think you probably pick up a lot of the good from, coaches and people you've been around with before. And, that's something that I'd like to do moving forward is just, pick NHL GM's brains. I haven't been able to chat with a whole bunch of them, but some guys in the industry and just kind of learn from them. Like I think I'm most shaped by, the coaches we had in North Dakota and Dave Haxtell, Dane Jackson, Brad Berry. Like those are the things I probably have learned the most from now. But, picking up from different college coaches you run into, whether, Scott Sandelin at Duluth, Carl in Denver, like just being able to pick those guys' brains and how they recruit and how they manage is extremely valuable. And I like to think trying to pick up what they do well as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I was curious, Chyz, before we get into just the new rules and different things with the CHL and NCAA, I wanted to ask you, do you think there's this new role coming in for the NCAA in the hockey side of things? Now, in football, a lot of these teams, all these big teams, have a GM of essentially their football team. Do you think that's something that college hockey will ever get to? Or do you think there's not enough money? Because, they've brought in that next assistant now in terms of a recruiter and different things. But do you think there ever is a world where some of these teams will have a GM and a coach?
Yeah, I think 100% will go there. And, as far as money and adding positions, you're probably going to have 20 teams in Division I hockey that want it right away. And the other 40 that probably can't afford it, right? So then that creates an interesting vote. But with the landscape now, like in the previous world, covering the whole United States and all the Canadian junior leagues and still trying to coach is a really tough task. Like these assistant coaches have been grinding for years and late nights on the road and coming back for a Monday practice. And like, it's a lot of work. And now adding even more players to that mix, like it's a full-time job. And to know the player pool in Western Canada, Eastern Canada, and you got to remember in the US now there's players all over. There's Alaska, Florida, Boston, like to know that player pool and try and be on the bench and at every practice, to me is impossible. So I think you will see a shift that way, just because there's so much going on.
Yeah, well, now you're gonna start looking at the CHL guys. You're also looking at other teams because you could get a
Yeah.
transfer in. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane how many players they have to watch. I don't know how they manage it. I mean, I remember talking to the coaching staff at North Dakota, and it's definitely created a lot more work for all the coaches.
For sure. It's I think there's a lot of people in hockey overwhelmed right now, and college coaches being one of them, with just, the change and so much coming at them, and the NIL and, transfer portal. And it's a lot of work for just the normal coaching staff who's supposed to also coach the team every day.
So, Chyz, let's get into it. Let's get into, obviously, the new rules and regulations with the CHL and college hockey. Now, if you play major or junior, now you're eligible to go play in the NCAA. So, basically, first at the top for me is how does this affect the USHL? Is this going to be a thing you're going to have to change your recruiting model? Now you're competing with, kids having that option. I know maybe not every American kid would go north of the border and go play in the CHL, but how does this change in terms of just a whole league-wide thing? Is it something where you're going to have to be upgrading facilities, different things? Like, talk to me on this front, because I do think it changes the landscape probably a little bit, right?
For sure. It's new and it's going to change. And I think at this point, people are trying to forecast of what it looks like, right? And like, everyone's got their own projection, everyone's got their own forecast, but that's all it is. Like, we'll see what happens. I think, like, when you're talking about that, it's important to, like, evaluate where the USHL is at right now, right? And the reality is there's 60 teams in Canada and 15 top teams in the US. And, like, I'm a Canadian boy, and you guys know I'm loyal to that, but where hockey's grown in the US, like, I consider those two nations pretty even. You look at the four nations lineups, like, it's probably a coin toss. You look at the World Juniors, it's a coin toss, right? And that whole player pool in the US has been jammed into 15 teams, and, like, there hasn't been expansion. So, like, the league is really good right now and really deep. And I think, if you're comparing the two right now, I'm confident to say that our depth is way better than those teams, simply because there's 60 of them, right? Like, you can't fill 60 rosters as deep when we're only filling 15. Now, what separates them right now is when we have a top player, they're off to college. Like, they have the guys that are there for 4 years, right? The Braden Shens, who put up a point per game as a 16-year-old, and he's not going anywhere till he's 20 because he can't play in the American League, right? So, like, they have more of those guys because they can retain those guys. Meanwhile, as soon as we get a good player, they're off to college, right? Like, as soon as you become a top player in our league, you're gone. There's no 5-year contract you can sign a guy to. Like, as soon as he's good, he's out the door, right? So I think that's an important thing to see where we're at right now. And if you told that to somebody in Brandon, Manitoba, that the USHL is deeper than the CHL, Schmaltz, you know how that would go. Like, the Canadians think that, like, the Brandon Wheat Kings could beat Michigan. And that's just the reality. And anyone who works in hockey knows that that's not true. And now forecasting, we're entering direct competition with them now. And I think it makes everyone better. Like, we're going to have to be better as a league and individually. And I think it's going to come down to program versus program recruiting, a little bit like college, right? It's like, what can you do for me to achieve my goals? Like, I'm confident in Waterloo, speaking for us, that we do a better job than a lot of CHL teams. And, there's some CHL teams that do a good job. Obviously, you have the Londons of the world and Kitcheners, but, like, pound for pound, I'm confident that we can do a better job than a lot of these CHL teams and show kids the path to get to college hockey and achieve their goals. So at the end of the day, it's going to make everyone better. It's going to give players more choices, and I think it's positive for hockey.
Is there ever a world, Chyz, where the USHL kind of becomes part of the CHL? Is that a possibility? Like, you got the OHL, you got the WHL, you got the Q, and then maybe you got the USHL in there. I mean, because it feels like the teams are pretty similar. It would stack up decent. Like, is that an option, or is that just out of the realm?
Yeah, I think first off, it's above my pay grade. But second off, I haven't really heard of anything like that at this point. To me, if I'm the NHL, that sounds great to me, of building something like that. I think, having in that world, you'd have 80 programs. You want to make sure all those programs are top notch if you're going to that model, right? Which I think you can do and trim some of the fat. But if I'm the NHL, I think that's a perfect world where, the American kids, a lot of them can develop in the top league down here and the Canadian kids can stay up there and you can all meet for a tournament at the end. But like I said, that's above my pay grade and that's maybe just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious too, Chiz, like even in terms of expansion for the USHL and just making the league a little bigger, maybe some teams out west in a sense of maybe you have a western side of things. I don't know if there'd be a team in AZ, California, Colorado. I know that'd be a lot of hours on the bone rattler for some of these guys, but if you created a division out this way, I don't know. I was curious to kind of pick your brain on that. Is that something you could see the league doing as well, or what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. And I'm not involved in those conversations on the league level, but as I talked about with the growth of American hockey and only 15 teams down here, like there's players to fill teams. Like our cuts, we feel like are top tier junior hockey players right now, and there's just not enough spots for them. So I think that expansion would be a great thing, and getting into some of these bigger markets. I'd love to see a team in Minneapolis. It's difficult with the high school hockey, but I think it'd be great, and I think there's ways to make it work. And some of these other cities throughout the Midwest, St. Louis, I don't know, Nashville, like why not? Like I think it'd be great for continuing growing the game in the States here.
Yeah, I just think in terms of, I was actually having a conversation with my dad about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week over Thanksgiving. We were talking about just different things, and it almost becomes like a case-by-case thing, Chyzyk, in terms of you got to evaluate the program for the program. So, no disrespect to Youngstown, but Youngstown in my day, if I was going there and that was who I was drafted by, I don't need the fireworks show. I'm going to go try to play for the London Knights.
Yeah,
or different teams now. So it really becomes just getting that kid into your facilities, getting them around your development staff, and ultimately showing them the vision of what you think and what you can do for them. So yeah, it's kind of crazy where it's just like, okay, now it opens up to, instead of 15 teams before, now it's 75. Yeah. It's nuts.
And like we probably had a luxury before, because like when you're interviewing kids for the draft, they want to go to college. So it's like, we don't really need to recruit them. We'll just draft them. We're a good team. They'll come to us. Like now my job is way more recruiting. Yeah. It's more like the college landscape where it's like, hey, we know Saskatoon has your rights in the Western League. We're going to draft you and go head to head and show you why we're a better fit for you. And so it's definitely going to be a lot more on the recruiting side, not just the scouting side now.
Yeah, and I definitely think like you saw the movement, especially when the news was announced, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago, and you saw that movement out of the BCHL. I just think a lot of those tier 2, technically on paper, Canadian leagues might suffer more than the USHL, because a lot of these kids are like, oh, fuck, well, I don't have to play in Surrey. I can go play in Portland now, and I can still go to college that way. I think those leagues, it's going to be a little tricky for them to kind of, learn on the fly here. For sure.
And I think like the thing that people forget in it all is like, there's not more roster spots, So right. Like, it's not like all of a sudden players are disappearing, like they're going somewhere. Now there might be a shuffle, whether it's younger players going here, older players going here. You talk about college, some of these top guys in the CHL, hopefully going to college, but there's not more roster spots. It'll just maybe be a little bit of a reshuffle of where kids are at.
For sure. And I wanted to ask you, Chyzyk, like just the state of the USHL. Now, I was looking at Craigie Button or someone on Sportsnet, their big board over there just for their early projections for the 25 draft. And, I was obviously seeing a lot of kids from the U.S. program up there, 5-6 names in the first round or whatever it was, projected. This is, of course. Yeah. And I think I saw the highest name was maybe around 30 to 35 in this Adam Betnick from Youngstown. There was a kid out of Muskegon. So last year there was a ton of first rounders out of the USHL, a lot of high picks. Now this year it seems like maybe that isn't the case. Now maybe it's the meat of it's more in the middle rounds. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say this year, as far as like non-NTDP teams, it doesn't seem like there's a whole bunch of big names that are projected to go in the first round anyways, right? Like I think in the USHL that kind of comes and goes depending on the year. Like obviously back when we played, there was first round. I don't know, what was there, 2 first rounders, 1 or 2 first rounders usually every year. Is that about right?
1 or 2. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that kind of comes and goes with our league, and the NTDP can produce a lot of first rounders usually. But, I think when I think about the USHL and kind of to its core, it's that late developer that goes in round 3, 4 that is on his way up to a superstar, right? Like that's why the NHL guys spend so much time in our ranks. It's like that older developing player, I feel like. So there'll be some sneaky ones that I think rise up draft boards as the year goes on. Just kind of those fast risers that kind of catch heat towards the second half.
Mm-hmm. It always happens. The USHL is such a funny league because, statistically wise, you look at it, it's a lot harder to play on a USHL team than to even play D1 hockey. So I always felt like, well, actually, when you play at NTDP, you kind of play both. And, when we played the Green Bay Gamblers, Jordo's team, we couldn't beat them. And we could beat some of these college teams. So, like, Jordo's Green Bay Gamblers team was better than half the college teams in the country that year. So it's like, it's just funny thinking about that and how hard it is to actually play in the USHL.
Yeah, I think people forget how, difficult of a league it is. And, we're seeing it more with kind of the logjam I was talking about before this ruling. Is it's tough for young kids, and for young kids to have success in that first year, it's difficult. Now, a lot of times if they get through that first year and earn a regular spot in the lineup, that year 2 they get the payoff pitch once they got the league figured out. But it is a real difficult league for young kids to kind of break into right now.
Yeah, those Green Bay Gamblers teams. Hey, Ozzo, we also had Grant Arnold stretching at the red line too, looking at you fucking pigeons in the bird cages, saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna eat you fuckers alive, then I'm gonna chew you up and spit you out." But Chyzyk, I wanted you to touch on just the coach you hired a few years ago, and Matt Maybe, obviously a North Dakota alum. You speak very highly of him, and ultimately one day he's going to be on to his next job, and hopefully that's a head coach in college hockey, and then who knows from there, because he is, to all my accounts, a very intelligent coach that can relate to this day and age player. What would you say Schmaby's best quality is, or maybe a couple that you've seen on the day-to-day basis of how he coaches or how he portrays his messages to these young players?
Yeah, I think in today's game, in his greatest asset is his ability to teach and communicate, right? I think obviously not being there all the time, it certainly feels like his door is always open and he has a lot of one-on-one conversations with our guys, which I think is important with today's kid, right? I think we pride ourselves in Waterloo of being extremely competitive, both in practice and in games. And I think bringing that out in kids while not getting them to hate you is a difficult thing, a difficult line to walk, right? I feel like if you look at the best NHL coaches, they have that relationship with their players where they can, demand compete and demand work while still keeping that relationship. And I think that's his greatest asset moving forward is, walking that line of being a hard, demanding those things from our players while still having them invested in the group and still wanting to be a part of it. Right. So I think that's what makes him special. I think that's what's going to give him kind of a bright future within the game. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. I just think, I think especially just how you have to coach these days. And, I'm on the outside looking in on a lot of these situations now, but it's not the same, obviously, as when we were coming up. You hate to be that guy saying back in my day, but it really is. It's a different kid. I think they're more intelligent. They're more aware of what's going on and ultimately realize they probably have a little bit more power than you think. Because, when we were coming up, it's like, holy fuck, I got to do everything. Yeah, my coach says, and now it's like, well, okay, well, actually, no, this is the way I see it, and you have to be able to kind of, massage those one-on-ones a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. For sure, and I think in saying that, you can also go too far the other way in today's game. I think there's some guys that just kind of try and run it like a country club and allow the guys to do whatever the hell they want. I don't think that's a winning product. Obviously, never being in the room with John Cooper, from the outside looking at how he coaches a guy like Kucherov. To me, it's crazy impressive. Obviously, there's give and take there, but I think he still holds him to a high standard. You see Kucherov get benched every now and then, and they have a good relationship, right? To be able to manage a guy that makes more money than you is a tough thing to do. And I think John Cooper is just a great example of how impressive that is.
I wanted to ask both of you guys this because I actually just saw Shaq talking about it in the NBA. analysts, but I'll go to hockey because I think it's interesting, this topic. How much does it matter if you're going to be a coach or a general manager? How much does it matter if you played at a high level or not? Like, how much weight do you put on that? Because like, it almost seems like I used to, when I was younger, I used to think you had to have experience to coach me and you had to play at a high level to, for me to respect you. But now it's almost like that doesn't really matter as much anymore. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Go Chiz.
I think like playing professional at that same level that you're coaching gives you an advantage because you know what's happening in that locker room. You know how guys think, you know how guys want to be treated. Like, I think it's an advantage. But if you're a super sharp person and super, dialed in on management and leadership and can pick up on those things, like, it doesn't really matter. And I think, I'm kind of beating the dead horse on Cooper, but like, that's like, I think he knows what an NHL locker room wants and thrives off of. So I would say it gives you an advantage if you were in that room and played, but like, it's not the end all be all, because if you're a sharp guy, you can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it gives you credibility right off the hop. And from what you do with that credibility, now I think that should, or at least be considered to be thrown out the window. Scotty Bowman, how many cups did he win? 11, 12? The guy never stepped on the sheet. And he was arguably the smartest hockey mind of all time. And, a guy that, just knew how to run a practice. His players actually hated him. But at the same time, he said, you might hate me for 364 days of the year, but on that 365th, when you got a ring and you're holding the mug, it's a pretty good feeling. So I don't know. I just don't think, I think there's people that know how to manage. They have good feel. They have good vibe. They just have a good aura around them. And if you're able to connect on that level and then understand the sport enough and be a good communicator, I don't think it really matters, man. I really don't. The longer I go, I just think, there's different ways to skin a cat. And just because you played 700 NHL games doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach, right? So I just think, there's a fit in every sense. And that leads me to my next question, Chyzyk. A lot of these coaches, a lot of managers, they study other sports. They say they go into maybe go talk to a soccer coach or boxing or some of these different games, football. You always see these sit downs or these crossovers in the off season of guys sitting down with coaches and managers from other sports. Is that something that you have considered or done before? Or is that, maybe something you'd like to get to? I was curious on that front, brother.
Yeah, I think I probably looked at it in a very small portion, right? I think I'd love to do more of it. I think, I was big into the Chicago Cubs success and Theo Epstein when he kind of came up, the book, The Cubs Way. I was a big fan of that and learning how he, the biggest takeaway from that book was he was so numbers orientated, and then, kind of figured out the leadership aspect and the locker room aspect to go with the numbers and kind of attested that to being successful. I haven't dialed into, I know Schmaltz, you're a big NBA guy. I haven't done much in that league. I love following the NFL draft process. Like, when you get a peek behind the curtain there, it's super interesting, and kind of their analysis and how they value picks and trade picks. And then I think from the business side of it, soccer is super interesting, and just like the player transfers and selling players and trying to like build value that way. So I would say I've looked at it at a very small level, and I wish I had more time to kind of chat with some of those guys to dive in more, because I do think there's ways it can relate to hockey for sure.
Yeah, you were always a big Moneyball guy, Billy Bean, just punching it in on the spreadsheets. Like, so if you're cutting up a pie, 50-50 analytics versus eye, or is it eye test 70, analytics 30? Because I know you're punching in the numbers, but at the same time, you're always going to trust your own chin and your eye, and you do have a great eye for evaluating talent. So what's the give and take there? Because you got the one side of people that are just the analytical nerds. It's like, all right, fella, like fucking pick your head up from the computer and watch the actual game. And then you got the guys that say, no, I'm not going to believe anything in the numbers because I think I have the best eye in scouting. So where do you lie on that in terms of if you're playing percentages?
Yeah, percentages. I would say that I'm going to avoid the percentage question, which is a cop out, but I'm going to go with the eye first, and then kind of peeling back the layers with the data to see, one, if it supports your eye, or 2, it tells a completely different story. And then it's like, God, am I seeing this wrong? And kind of looking at it in a different way. And
Yeah.
like same with team results on a game-to-game basis. Watching the tape first, if it sucks, okay, like peeling back the data of like why it sucks and
Mhm.
what do we need to do better for the video not to suck. So I think it all starts with the old school
Mhm.
watching with your own eyes, but I think like the data and the analytics can provide the information or context, I guess, if you will, on why it looks like that, or maybe you're seeing something that you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that kind of answer your question a bit? Like, I think
Oh yeah.
if you start with the numbers, it's a scary place to go to.
Yeah.
Personally, and I've probably grown within that from when my college days when I was trying to be Billy Bean.
When you're Chiz, yeah, you kind of are Billy Bean. Chiz, when you're
Say
watching,
Jonah Hill.
Chiz, when you're watching clips, let's just say, in the future when I have a son, when you're watching clips,
I'm out. I don't want
like what are you watching? Like I always watch games. Like I'll go to these high school hockey games in Minnesota, and I'm like, I don't know who to watch. And I mean, obviously you can pick up like, oh, this guy looks nasty. Is that all you're doing, or are you like, what are you looking at when you're watching tape?
Well, there's 2 probably types of evaluations. There's a game where you're just going to watch to find guys like kind of you don't have anyone flagged yet,
Mhm.
and that's like one style of watching, or you got like a mission to go watch one guy and you're kind of ISO camming them. I would say for like the first frame when you're just openly watching a game, it's like you obviously are drawn to the skill flashes, the skating, the stick skills, and then once you find that, then you're kind of peeling back the layers again of competitiveness, brain, because like it's hard to pick
Yeah.
up on those little details of the game when you're just watching
Yeah.
10 players on the ice at all times. So it's like, I think the skill kind of drags you to a player, and then you kind of, see his competitiveness, see his brain, kind of look, just ISO cam him and see if he's kind of got those other attributes that make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of like a Cole Smith. Like, how do you tell? Like, how do you ever even lay eyes on that guy when he's in juniors, when he doesn't really know how to skate yet? He doesn't have hands, but he's got compete, and he's a mutant out there with his body and physical nature. Like, how do you even see that guy?
I think that's probably why he kind of gets overlooked at the start of his stuff, right? Like if you look at him at that 10-player view and watching a game, it's like, well, that guy can't, he's an ugly skater, he kind of beats the puck up. Like, I don't need to watch him more, but if you actually did take the time and watch his, his little plays along the wall and his compete, it's like, man, he's actually really effective and he's got a chance here. It's like he probably didn't pass that first, viewing of trying to dial in more on him.
Yeah, for sure. And that even like that's a guy. Even we talked about him last week, Azo, on the show, but like Ryan Lomberg, the Lamborghini, when he was coming out of Muskegon, I didn't know what it was at the time, but I was like, wow, this guy can skate. Number one, I think the biggest attribute he was absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And he would just take guys' heads off and then stand in there and fight whoever it was. And sometimes he'd get his ass kicked. And sometimes, he'd just get a little windshield wiper in the face. But it was like, I didn't at the time. I was like, this guy's fucking nuts. And then I saw him again in Stockton doing the same thing. I'm like, well, if he's doing it at this level, being that big of a criminal, he's got a chance to play here. Now, sometimes did he have to improve probably his puck play at the puck? Of course. But if you're going full kamikaze as an F1 on the forecheck at that level and you don't care about the repercussions, it's like little things like that, I think, that you can kind of like pick up on. You know what I mean? It's like, like, you're not going to be a top end player, but you hit the weight room and you're a good athlete and you're going to have that level of crazy. There might be a spot for you here someday in the bottom 6.
And I think, dealing with coaches find ways to make room for a guy like that on the bottom 6, right? Like every coach loves having one of those guys that'll go through a wall and you know what you're getting every night, even if it's limited. Like, every coach I've ever had or dealt with or, wants that guy. And and it's funny because like when I first started, I was never looking for that guy. And now like in talking to a whole bunch of coaches, it's like, we got to find some of those guys, which makes it fun. But that's a great comparison.
For sure. And that leads me to one of my favorites out of Brandon, Manitoba. Have you found any comparables to Ryan White. You know what I mean, Chyzyk? When you're scouting on the road, you're getting into the chin of the prairies. Maybe it's up in Northeast Massachusetts or something. Have you found any Ryan White comparables? Because Whitey was one of my favorites of all time.
I don't think they make many Whiteys anymore. You know, or at least I'm in the wrong areas of the country to be finding out. Don't see too many Whiteys playing Minnesota high school puck.
No.
Don't see a lot of Whiteys on the Chicago Mission or Mount St. Charles or Shattuck for that. But maybe I got to take a trip up north, see the folks, and get up to northern Manitoba, and maybe can find one here.
I was going to say, when's the last time you stopped into Sears, Manitoba, and we were at the bowling alley, the Subway across the street? Have you stopped in? Have you stopped in for a Caesar lately, or no?
I don't know if there. I don't know. Is there a bowling alley there? I'm not sure. Is there? I know there's a Subway. There's a Subway for sure. The swinging bridge. I don't know about the bowling alley though. I might have made that up.
I might have made that up too because I thought we were in a bowling alley. Maybe I was just that drunk. I don't know.
I think we probably had a few too many soda pops where we thought we were bowling. But I don't know.
Oh man, what a town that is! But yeah, how about last night, boys? Before you got anything else, Ozzo, by the way, for Chizzy?
No, not. I wanted to ask. I kind of wanted to ask him. I didn't know if he had. I don't expect him to say anything, but I wanted to ask him, like, do you have a plan? Like, do you have somewhere you're like trying to get to? Like, you want that position, or is it kind of just whatever comes along? You know, if it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I think working in the NHL is the goal, and you know, I meet with players all the time about, you know, trusting the development path and taking your time, and it's not about how fast you get there. So I'm kind of in the same boat right now. It's like I'm not in a hurry to get there. I want to make sure I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out this league. And when I get there, I want to be ready to succeed and in a good spot. So that's obviously the goal, but I guess I want to make sure I'm doing it the right way and being ready when I get there, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to tell Chiz this on a less serious note. Last night, you know, obviously we've had our beer pong tournament during COVID with all the North Dakota boys. But last night, boys, Nicky Schmaltz on the wood against none other than Post Malone. He said he cleaned him in 4 of 7. Yeah,
no way.
Yeah,
in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, cleaned him in 4. He said Posty can't even go 7. He said let alone 9. Cleaned him.
You got to get Posty in a bunker game though. He might be able to box out pretty good.
For sure. And he said, well, he's skinny now. I think he might be on Ozempic. So he sent me a picture of him, and all it was 3 aside fella, and it was just a picture of the wood and Posty on the other side. 3 aside fella. And I go OT's too. So yeah, that was
Nicky's a good player. I remember Besser's first day on campus. I think we took him 5 balls back in a row. They didn't even get a chance to touch him. So that doesn't shock me with Nicky. He's a player.
Yeah. I'll never forget the game. I forget who it was. It was me and Nick versus someone, but it was my only game ever where we went balls back 5 times, game over. They didn't even get to shoot, because if you go balls back, obviously on that last shot, the Nuggets come back, and I've never even seen it before, or let alone do it. I don't know if we ever will, but yeah, Nicky took home that beer pong tournament. That was unbelievable. But all right, boys, you got anything else for the GM, Ozzo? That was great.
It's always good to see him.
Chyzyk, we appreciate you coming on, man. Live in 5, obviously big time friend of the show. So thank you for, donating a little bit of time over here for the boys. I think the people will really like this. It's a good insight to the USHL and the current state. So thank you for popping on, dude. Really appreciate it.
No, appreciate it, boys, having me. And hopefully I wasn't too boring, as, with my job, I got to keep it on the rails a little bit, but hopefully somewhat entertaining. And yeah, love listening to you guys when I can.
Yeah, it was that was great. So, folks, that was Bryn Chyzyk, GM of the Waterloo Blackhawks. Bye.